Hello my dear students, welcome back to your own channel VA NEET Academy. So till now we have seen about the cell organelles and today we are moving on to the next topic, which is cell cycle. Now have you ever wondered how come a single cell called zygote, which is formed by the fusion of a fertilized egg, that is sperm and egg, when they fuse together they form zygote, okay, and this zygote they multiply into 2, 3, 4 and 5 and they just keep on multiplying, 2 cell, 4 cell, 6 cell, 8 cell, 32 and they keep on doubling, okay, and then at one stage they form a cell called as morula and then blastocyst, okay, and this blastocyst then go and attach to the uterus of the mother, where they are called as the embryo. The growing cell is called as the embryo, okay. So this embryo becomes zygote and the zygote becomes a baby. How beautiful the process is, isn't it? So this all happens because the cell multiply, and this multiplication is the process called as mitosis. Okay, so that is what we are going to study in today's class about cell cycle and detailed mitosis. Hopefully I'll bring it day after tomorrow, because tomorrow will be, as per our pattern, the MCQs on today's class. Okay, so carefully watch our class, and if you have any doubts, do comment me and ask so that I can clarify your doubts. Thank you. So let us begin our today's class with definition of a cell cycle. Okay, so how will you define a cell cycle? So cell cycle, it is the sequence, okay, it is the sequence of events, okay. So what sequence are they? By which a cell grows, okay, it is a sequence of events by which a cell grows and also divides into two daughter cells, So by definition, it is the sequence of events by which a cell grows into two daughter cell, okay. So let us see in detail the cell cycle, okay. So the cell cycle, it has two major phases, okay, it has two major phases, okay. So one is called interphase. Now this constitute about 95% of the cycle, okay, this constitute about 95% of the cell cycle, okay. So one is interphase, clear, and the second phase is M phase, okay. M phase is also called as mitotic phase. So obviously if this is 95%, this makes up about 5% of the cell cycle, clear, okay. So let us first see what is interphase, okay. So interphase, it is the longest phase, as we have just seen, it is the longest phase, okay. So it has in turn G1 phase, also called as gap 1 phase, okay. So in this phase what happens? This is what it is, actually a sequence of events, right. So in G1 phase the cell grows in size, okay. RNA synthesis happens, protein synthesis happens, and then organelle formation happens, So this is all required for what? The cell cycle, okay. Cell grows in size, RNA synthesis, protein synthesis, organelle formation, this is all required for the cell to divide and grow into two, okay. So G1 phase, after that the next phase is G2 phase. sorry, after this there is S phase. S phase. Okay, after G1 phase, the next phase is S phase. S phase, what happens? Now you can remember S as synthesis phase, synthetic phase. Okay, a very important NEET based questions usually asked. Now what happens in S phase? The DNA replication occurs. So what happens in S phase? The DNA replication happens. So you can just imagine before S phase, okay, there are supposingly 2 copies of DNA. Okay. So what happens after S phase? So after S phase there will be 4 copies of DNA. Okay. Got it? So synthetic phase, what happens in synthetic phase? There is the replication of DNA. The DNA replicates or else increases, divides its number into double. Okay. But then remember students, always very important, chromosome number remains the same. Chromosome number remains the same. If the chromosome number is 46, it will be 46 before and after the S phase. Okay. So have if you are still confused, you have to just remember chromosome is what? It's a chromatid condensed in a condensed form. Okay. Now when I say the S phase is happening, what is happening? The DNA is producing its the DNA is producing its another copy, something like this. Okay. So what is happening? The DNA is getting doubled, but the chromosome number is the same. Okay. Hope it's clear, right? So this is about the interphase, the S phase. Now the next phase of the interphase is called as G2 phase. The next phase is called G2 phase. Okay. So what also called as gap 2 phase. So what happens in gap 2 phase? In gap 2 phase, protein synthesis occurs. Protein synthesis occurs. Okay. Spindle preparation occurs. Spindle preparation. Okay. And then the cell gets ready for mitosis, that is cell division. Okay. So basically in G2 phase the cell is preparing itself to enter into the M phase. So it's clear that cell cycle has 2 phases, interphase and M phase. Interphase is the preparatory phase. Okay. Interphase is the preparatory phase which makes up about 95% of the cell cycle. Now what are the preparatory phase? The preparatory phase are G1 phase, S phase and G2 phase. Okay. What happens in G1? Cell growth, protein synthesis, RNA synthesis, organelle formation. What happens in S phase? DNA gets duplicated. What happens in G2 phase? Protein synthesis, spindle fiber formation and cell gets ready to enter into the M phase. Clear? So interphase is now over. Clear? Okay. So now let us move on to the next phase, which is your M phase. So the cell cycle has the other phase, which is, I'll take another paper for this because it's need the detailed explanation. Now the next phase is M phase. So after the 95% of the cell remains in the interphase state, the cell enters into the M phase, which is also called as mitosis phase. Okay. Now this phase is divided into 4 other phases: P, M, A and T, also called as prophase, metaphase, anaphase and telophase. Don't get confused students, it is very simple. M phase in turn is divided into 4 phases: prophase, metaphase, anaphase and telophase. Okay. So, let us try and learn this through the diagram, because that will be much more easier. So, what happens in prophase? In prophase, suppose this is the cell and this is the nucleus. Okay. So, what happens in prophase? The nuclear membrane starts disappearing, and this is why I have drawn it in dots. Okay. The nuclear membrane starts disappearing. There is the formation of spindle fibers. Okay. There is the formation of spindle fibers, and the chromosome condenses. Now, I am drawing the sister chromatids here because the synthetic phase has already happened in the interphase. The chromosome has already doubled. Okay. So, it has got the sister chromatids. Clear? Okay. So, this happens in what phase? In your prophase. This is your prophase. Okay. So, the nuclear membrane disappears, the chromosome condenses and it appears. Okay, the spindle formation happens. So, chromatids, sister chromatids, you can see why is there a sister chromatid? Because in the S phase or in interphase stage, the chromosome has already doubled. Okay. So, let us move on to the next stage, which is your metaphase. Very simple. Metaphase, what happens is, all the chromatids, all the chromosomes, okay, they arrange themselves in the equator of the cell. Okay. All of them gets themselves arranged in the equator of the cell, and the spindle fibers are attached to the centromere of the chromosome. So, all of you remember what is a centromere? It is the middle portion, the constricted portion in the chromosome, right? So, this is the place where the spindle fibers attach itself to the chromosome. Clear, students? Okay. So, that is the role of the spindle fiber. So, what is this phase? This phase is metaphase. Clear? Okay. So, next move on to the next phase. What is the next phase? Anaphase. So, what happens in anaphase? Very simple. After it is being arranged into the center, I will draw and tell you, the centromere splits. The centromere, they split into two. Okay. So, centromere split into two. Okay. And obviously, it is being attached to the spindle fibers. Okay. So, the centromere splits into two and separate, and they are being pulled to the opposite poles of the cell. Okay. So, after the splitting of the centromere is done, each pole will be receiving one half of the chromosome. Because we have already duplicated, each pole will be receiving the half, exactly the equal amount of chromosome. Okay. So, this is what phase? This is your anaphase. This is your anaphase, and then comes the telophase. The telophase, here what happens is, chromosome actually almost reaches the pole of the cell. There is the appearance of nuclear membrane. So, this is your chromosome, which is already there. Okay. Pulled by what? Pulled by your spindle fiber to the corner. Okay. There is the reappearance of the nuclear membrane and also the nucleolus. okay, and the spindle fiber disappears. The spindle fiber disappears. You can see the length of the spindle fiber here, and you can see this length of the spindle fiber here. It is actually disappearing. Okay. So, this happens in what phase? In the telophase. Clear, students? A very beautiful sequence, right? So, interphase, the chromosome doubles and enters into the M phase. In M phase, you can see the prophase, where the nuclear membrane disappears, the spindle fibers formation happens. In metaphase, all of them align in the equator and allow the spindle fiber to attach itself, okay, and the position where it attaches is called the centromere. In anaphase, the centromere split, causing there is an equal distribution of the chromosome, and the spindle fiber pulls the chromosome to the poles, causing the division of the chromosome into the two poles of the cell, and there is a reappearance of nuclear membrane, nucleolus, and disappearance of spindle fiber. Hope it is clear, students. Any doubts, do comment me so that I can clarify. Okay. And then next phase of the cell cycle is called as cytokinesis. Cytokinesis. So, what happens in cytokinesis? This is the cyto means cytoplasm, okay, kinesis is division. So, this is division of cytoplasm, division of cytoplasm, okay. So, what happens is in animal cell there is a formation of cleavage furrow, okay, there is a formation of cleavage furrow. For example, now suppose this is the cell which has received the two chromosome at the two poles. Now, the cleavage furrow will start forming, okay. Okay, so this is how the cleavage furrow starts forming, right, and this cleavage deepens further, okay, causing the two cells to divide and each cell receiving one nucleus with the chromosomes, okay. So, this is how the cleavage furrow happens in an animal cell. Now, what happens in a plant cell? In a plant cell, there is a formation of cell plate. There is a formation of cell plate. All of you know that plant cell has a cell wall, right? So, supposingly this is the cell wall, okay, and the two nucleus has been formed after telophase. Now, what happens next is the cell plate formation happens. The two nucleus is present here, okay. The two nucleus is present here, and finally the cell plate becomes the cell wall. The cell plate finally becomes the cell wall, something like this. Okay, and the cell is divided into two. Hope it's clear, students. Yes, okay, yeah. So, now let us know what is the significance of this, significance of mitosis, that is M phase of the cell cycle. What is its significance? So, its significance is that it helps in cell growth, it helps in cell growth, it helps in cell repair, okay, replacement of damaged cell, and also to maintain the chromosome number. So, these are the significance of the mitosis, okay. So, hope the class was clear, students. Cycle, cell cycle, very simple. It's made up of, it has two phase, interphase and M phase. Interphase in turn has G1, S and G2 phase, and M phase has prophase, metaphase, anaphase and telophase. And finally, the cell divides into two by cytokinesis. Cyto meaning cytoplasm, kinesis meaning division. Okay. So, hope the class was clear. Do comment me if you have any doubt. Do share, subscribe and follow our channel for more and more videos, so that I can bring you more and more videos which will encourage me to do so. Please do subscribe, students. This really helps me to improve my skills. Thank you.